Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls on the 5th of Iyar, 5785, May 3rd, 2025, the reading for Taria-Metzora, which you can find in last year's episode of the Weekly Parashahcast Season 1, but today we're going to be beginning the Book of Samuel 2, Shmuel Bet, with Chapter 1. Coming right off of the heels of the first book, I want to remind everybody I'm not a professional scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the scripture. You could follow along in English via Chabad.org. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Shmuel 2, Chapter 1, Verse 1. And it was after Saul's death, and David had returned from beating the Amalekites, that David dwelt in Ziklag 2 days. And it was on the third day, and behold, a man came from the camp, from Saul, and his clothes were rent, and there was earth on his head. And it was when he came to David that he fell to the ground and prostrated himself. And David said to him, Where are you coming from? And he said to him, From the camp of Israel. I have escaped. And David said to him, What was the situation? Tell me now. And he said, That the people fled from the battle, and also many of the people fell and died, and also Saul and his son Jonathan died. And David said to the youth who told him, How did you know that Saul and his son Jonathan died? And the youth who told him said, I chanced to be on Mount Gilboa, and behold, Saul was leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the leaders of the cavalry had overtaken him. And he turned around behind him, and he saw me and called to me, and I said, Here I am. And he said to me, Who are you? And I said to him, I am an Amalekite. And he said to me, Stand over me now, and put me to death, for a shudder has seized me for as long as my life is within me. And I stood over him, and put him to death, for I knew that he would not live after his fall. And I took the crown which was on his head, and the armlet which was on his arm, and I have brought them here to my lord. And David took hold of his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men who were with him. And they lamented and wept, and fasted until evening for Saul, and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, for they had fallen by the sword. And David said to the youth who told him, From where are you? And he said, I am the son of an Amalekite stranger. And David said to him, How did you not fear to stretch forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the youths and said, Go near, fall upon him. And he struck him, and he died. And David said to him, Your blood be upon your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul, and over Jonathan his son. And he said to teach the sons of Judah the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of the just. O beauty of Israel, on your high places shall lie the slain. How have the heroes fallen? Tell it not in Gath, announce it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. O mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew nor rain upon you, nor shall you be fields of heave offerings, for there the shield of the mighty was rejected. Saul's shield was as though not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, Jonathan's bow did not turn back, nor did Saul's sword return empty. Saul and Jonathan his son, who were beloved and pleasant in their lifetime, and in their death they were not separated. They were swifter than eagles and mightier than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who dressed you in crimson with delights, who put golden ornaments on your clothes. How did the mighty fall in the midst of battle? Jonathan, on your high places you were slain. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You were very pleasant to me. Your love was more wonderful to me than the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. End of chapter 1. So here we see the immediate continuation after Saul's demise in battle. David, at the time, had been fighting the Amalekites, and now is dwelling in Ziklag, which previously had been burned. Now on day 3, a man comes from camp, from the Israelite camp, and he tells him that Saul has died, and he looks very distraught. So David asks him, "Where are you coming from that you bring me this news?" And he says, "I'm from Israel." "What's the situation?" "Well, Saul and Jonathan have both died." And he says, "How do you know that they died?" And he tells him, "Well, basically, I was there. I saw that Saul was leaning on his spear, and the enemy was overtaking him. So he called out to me and said, 'Stand over me and put me to death.' So basically, he asked me to kill him, and so I did. That way, I could now bring this crown to you, as well as the armlet that he wore. But yeah, that's what I did." And so David and all the men they grieve over this, and they fast, and they just completely, they have a day of mourning. And he asks the boy, "Where do you come from? Like, what is your origin?" And he responds, "I'm the son of an Amalekite stranger." And David asks him, "How did you not fear to stretch forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Which, recall, this is something that David has said many times. When he had the opportunity to kill Saul himself, what stopped him was the fact that he was anointed by God. Even though he lost the mandate of heaven, Saul had still been anointed and was thus still too holy for anybody to be killing him among Israel. But this guy clearly had no problem doing so. And it's very important to bring this here because in the previous portion or previous chapters in the end of the book of Samuel 1, Saul asks his weapon bearer to do this, and his weapon bearer is too afraid, it says. And at the time, I didn't realize the reason he was afraid was because he feared God. But it turns out that was the reason, because this Amalekite did not fear God. And now I bring recollection to what happened when Saul raided the temples where all of the different faithful of the Lord were. This is where Abimelech and his people were. And sure enough, it was not one of his normal sons of Israel, but could it be this very same person, this Amalekite? Now we know his destiny, what awaited him. For killing Saul, and indeed for killing all the others, he was put to death. "Your blood be upon your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, I've slain the Lord's anointed." And so David saw to it that this man did not survive. But all the same, he then gives this very beautiful speech about the loss of the two. He also says to teach the sons of Judah the bow, and I did look into this. It's referring to make sure the sons of Judah know archery. So he's building an army of archers. So beyond that is the long and beautiful epitaph of the two, Saul and Jonathan. David is bereaved. Moving on to chapter 2. Book of Samuel 2, chapter 2, verse 1. And it was after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go up into one of the cities of Judah?" And the Lord said to him, "Go up." Said David, "Where shall I go up?" And he said, "To Hebron." And David went up there, and also his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And his men who were with him David brought up, each man and his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came and there anointed David as king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying that the men of Yabesh Gilead buried Saul. And David sent messengers to the men of Yabesh Gilead, and said to them, "Blessed be you to the Lord that you have performed this kindness with your lord with Saul, that you buried him. And now may the Lord do with you kindness and truth. And also I shall requite you this kindness, that you have done this thing. And now let your hands be strong and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me as king over them." And Abner the son of Ner, the general of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, Saul's son, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he became king over Israel, and he reigned 2 years, but the house of Judah were after David. And the length of time which David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul, went out of Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, and David's servants, went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, these on one side of the pool, and these on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, "Let the boys get up now and play before us." And Joab said, "Let them get up." And they got up and passed in number 12 of Benjamin and of Ishbosheth, and 12 of David's servants. And each one took hold of his fellow's head, and his sword was thrust in his fellow's side, and they fell together. And he called that place the territory of those slain by the sharp swords, which is in Gibeon. And the battle was very sore on that day, and Abner and the men of Israel were beaten before David's servants. And the 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as one of the deer which are in the field. And Asahel pursued Abner, and did not turn to go to the right or to the left from after Abner. And Abner turned around and said, "Is that you, Asahel?" And he said, "It is I." And Abner said to him, "Turn you aside to your right or to your left, and take you hold of one of the boys, and take to yourself his clothing." But Asahel did not want to turn aside from following him. And Abner continued further to say to Asahel, "Turn you aside from following me. Why shall I strike you to the ground? And how will I hold up my face to Joab your brother?" And he refused to turn aside, and Abner struck him with the back end of the spear under the 5th rib, and the spear came out from behind him, and he fell there and died in his place. And it was that everyone who came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died stood still. And Joab and Abishai pursued Abner, and the sun set when they came to the hill of Ammah, which is before Giah by the way of the desert of Gibeon. And the sons of Benjamin gathered after Abner, and became one band, and they stood on top of one hill. And Abner called to Joab and said, "Will the sword forever consume? Did you not know that it would be bitter in the end? Until when will you not say to the people to return from after their brothers?" And Joab said, "As God lives, for had you not spoken then from the morning, the people would have gone away, each one from after his brother." And Joab blew the horn, and all the people stood still, and pursued Israel no more, and they did not continue to fight. And Abner and his men went through the plain all that night, and they crossed the Jordan, and went through all the Bithron, and came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from after Abner, and gathered all the people, and there were missing of David's servants 19 men, and Asahel. And David's servants had slain of Benjamin and of Abner's men 360 men died. And they carried Asahel and buried him in his father's grave, which is in Bethlehem. And they went all night, Joab and his men, and the light broke upon them in Hebron. End of chapter 2. So, here we have a very unusual situation unfold. So David is at this time inquiring as to where he should go next. Should I go into one of the cities of Judah? And he gets the word from the Lord. The answer is yes, go to Hebron. So he goes there with his family as well as all of his army and their families, and they dwell in Hebron. And while they're there, David is anointed as king over the house of Judah, and they also inform him that the men of Yabesh Gilead have buried Saul, given him his proper burial rights. And so David sends them messengers and basically says, like, "You've done such a wonderful thing. I will surely repay your good deeds with good deeds, because what you did is truly wonderful, what you did for Saul." Now, as it would happen, at the same time, Abner, who is one of the general of Saul's army, and I believe is Saul's uncle, he takes one of Saul's heirs, a survivor of the house of Saul, and appoints him as king, Ishbosheth, 40 years old. He gets appointed as king over all of Israel, basically. Ephraim, Benjamin, everyone. He is the man. So, at age 40, here he is as the king of this part of Israel, and the other part is after David in Judah. So he is only king for 2 years. David, it says, is king for 7 years and 6 months in Hebron. And so what ends up happening here, this is the unusual thing that occurs. It's a little bit of a strange situation where two armies from different sides of the same nation, they go and they cross paths, and what starts off as supposed to be like a little show turns into something that's a full-scale war. So basically, what ends up happening is that Abner takes his army of people, and Joab takes his army of people, and one side is, of course, from the one half, the other side is from David's half. and they're each at the same, it says they're gathered at a pool in Gibeon. We can assume this is like a lake or an oasis. And so they're all there, and they're sort of just having a nice little time. And Abner says to the other side, why don't we, he says, let the boys get up now and play before us. And so Joab agrees to it, and suddenly the 12 soldiers that come from each side, their idea of playing, it's supposed to be a fun little spectacle. It turns into a total bloodshed. All 12 from each side kill each other. So now this escalates, and it turns the place into like a place of infamy, right? The territory of those slain by the sharp swords. So they all start fighting, and Abner is beaten back by David's men. It's a pretty serious loss, but beyond that, Abner is pursued, so he flees with his army, and one of Joab's brothers named Asahel is chasing after him. Now Asahel, this is significant, he is basically very, very fast. It says that he is so fleet of foot, he runs at the speed of a deer. So he chases after Abner, and Abner basically tells him, like, hey, kid, listen, I don't want to have to kill you, so why don't you just go that way and take one of the other guys, and we'll call it square, okay? And he just doesn't listen, and he tries again. He's like, I don't want to have to hurt you. Like, I have to face your brother afterwards, so please, let's not do this. And the kid does not relent, and so Abner defends himself and ends up killing him. It says he hit him with the back of the spear. So it looks like he wasn't even trying to kill him. It's just it went wrong, and he put the spear right through the kid, and he died. And so everybody catches up finally, and they find the dead boy there, the dead brother of Joab, and they just sort of stop chasing for a while. And then after this, Abner calls out to all of the people of Joab's army, and he says, will the sword forever consume? Did you not know that it would be bitter in the end? Until when will you not say to the people to return from after their brother? So he's basically saying, like, didn't you know this is what was going to happen? Like, why don't you just go home? Let's just call it a day. And Joab tells him, as God lives, so in other words, he's swearing that this is the truth. He says, had you not spoken this morning, or from the morning, the people would have gone away, each one from after his brother. So in other words, he's saying that this is Abner's fault, because he was the one who said, why don't we let the boys play? Had he not said that, none of this would have happened. So he's telling him, this is your fault, Abner, and because of you, my brother is dead. So in any case, everybody goes back to their own way. Of the people of Joab's group, it says that David lost 19 men and Asahel, so he lost 20. And then it also says of Benjamin, of Abner's men, 360 died. So the ratio was 18-1 as far as kill count, but nevertheless, it was a big deal. Asahel gets buried in his father's grave in Bethlehem, and then it says they went all night, Joab and his men. The light broke upon them in Hebron. So they marched until they got back to Hebron in the morning. It's definitely a bad situation, and as we're going to see, it's the kind of situation that doesn't just go away. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to Chapter 3, the final one for this week's episode. Samuel Book 2, Chapter 3, Verse 1. And the war between the house of Saul and the house of David was long, and David kept growing stronger, while the house of Saul were continuously growing weaker. And sons were born to David in Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and his second Chileab of Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai the king of Geshur, and the fourth Adonijah the son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah the son of Abital, and the sixth Ithream of Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And it was while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David that Abner was exerting great effort to support the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Iyar. And he said to Abner, "Why did you go in to my father's concubine?" And Abner became very angry at the words of Ishbosheth, and he said, "Am I the head of the dogs which belong to Judah? Shall I do kindness today with the house of Saul your father to his brothers and to his friends, as I have done until now, and I have not delivered you into David's hand? And you charge me today with the guilt concerning the woman? God do so to Abner, and so may he continue to him. For as the Lord has sworn to David, for so shall I do to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner another word because of his fear of him. And Abner sent messengers to David from his place, saying, To whom this land belongs, saying, Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand is with you to bring around all Israel to you. And he said, Good, I shall make a covenant with you. But one thing I ask of you, namely that you shall not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, saying, Give my wife Michal, whom I espoused to myself, with 100 foreskins of Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from a man, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went with her, walking and weeping after her, up to Bahurim. And Abner said to him, Go, return. And he returned. And the word of Abner had been with the elders of Israel, saying, In times past you were seeking David as king over you. And now do it. For God said about David, saying, By the hand of my bondsman David shall I deliver my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines, and from the hand of all their enemies. And Abner spoke also in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner also went to speak in David's ears in Hebron all that pleased Israel and the entire house of Benjamin. And Abner came to David into Hebron, and with him were 20 men. And David made a feast for Abner and for the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, I shall get up and go, and gather all Israel to my lord the king, and they will make a covenant with you, and you will reign over all that your soul desires. And David sent Abner off, and he went in peace. And behold, David's servants and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and they brought him much plunder with them. Now Abner was not with David, for he had sent him off, and he had gone in peace. And Joab and all the army which were with him came, and they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he sent him off, and he went in peace. And Joab came to the king and said, What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why have you sent him off, so that he is gone? You know Abner son of Ner, that he has come to entice you, and to know your going out and your coming in, and know all that you are doing. And Joab departed from David, and he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of the thorns, and David did not know. And Abner returned to Hebron, and Joab caused him to turn aside unwittingly into the midst of the gate to speak with him, and he struck him there under the 5th rib, and he died for the blood of Asahel his brother. And David heard afterward, and he said, I and my kingdom are innocent before the Lord forever, of the blood of Abner the son of Ner. May it rest upon the head of Joab, and upon all his father's house, and may there not fail from the house of Joab one who has an issue, or one who is smitten with zarat, or one who leans on a staff, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. Now Joab and Abishai his brother slew Abner, because he put Asahel their brother to death in Gibeon in the battle. And David said to all the people who were with him, Rend your clothes and gird yourselves, with sackcloth and wail before Abner. And King David went after the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king raised his voice and wept on Abner's grave, and all the people wept. And the king lamented Abner, and said, Should Abner die like a wicked man? Your hands were not bound, and your feet were not put into copper chains. As one who falls before wicked men you have fallen. And all the people continued to weep over him. And all the people came to serve David bread while it was still daytime. But David swore, saying, God do so to me, and so continue, if before sunset I taste bread or anything. And all the people recognized, and it was pleasing in their eyes. All which the king did was pleasing in the eyes of all the people. And all the people and all Israel knew on that day that it was not of the king to put to death Abner the son of Ner. And the king said to his servants, Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? And today I am tender and just anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are harder than me. May the Lord requite the evildoer according to his evil. End of chapter 3. So here we have huge turn of events and political intrigue that you just cannot believe is going on. So there is something of a civil war, a legitimacy dispute going on. House of Saul, House of David. It's a civil war. And it says that over time the House of David's getting stronger and the House of Saul is getting weaker. Now, David has been having children, so his wives have been giving him sons, or at least several children. And as the war continues, it says that Abner, the general from the side of Saul, he's been really putting in a lot of effort to make sure that the side of Saul wins. So he's been fighting the good fight. But something unusual happens. The king, whose name is once again Ishbosheth, he looks at Abner and accuses him of something. Saul had a concubine in life. All right, this woman, Rizpah, the daughter of Iyar. Now, Ishbosheth accuses Abner of laying with this concubine that was Saul's concubine. And Abner is just mad. He is completely offended by this. And he basically says, am I the head of the dogs which belong to Judah? So he's saying, are you calling me like those scoundrels on the other side? How is it that you're going to treat me like this when I have done all that I've done for this house? I've done everything for the side of Saul. I've done everything for you. And you talk to me like this regarding a woman? Accuse me of this shameful deed? And so basically Abner just tells him straight up, okay, God do so to Abner, and so may he continue for him. For as the Lord has sworn to David, for so shall I do to him. So basically, he says, I'm going to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set the throne of David over Israel. So what did Abner just do? He just told Ishbosheth, you just messed with the wrong guy. Because everything I've been doing for you, I'm bringing to David. You just blew it, you idiot. So he sends his messengers to David, and he says, make a covenant with me, and basically, I'm yours. But David says, before I will meet with you, give me Michal. Now we recall, Michal was supposed to be married to David, but it didn't happen. Why? When David had to flee, Saul gave Michal over to someone else. But she was always supposed to belong to him because he went out and brought back all the foreskins of the Philistines. I think he was supposed to pay with 100. He showed up with 200. So he earned her fair and square as far as his father's conditions for marriage were. And that's his woman. Now, it's also worth noting, why would David do this? I mean, you could say it's because of a few reasons. One, he has, of course, his connection with her from the previous time, and he also knew that she loved him very much. Two, the promise that he made to Jonathan. They kept covenants that he would honor his father's house, the house of Saul. Three, this is actually where the political intrigue comes in. This is a legitimacy issue. So David, by having Michal, the daughter of Saul, he now has basically united the two houses. So the house of Saul and the house of David will be bound in matrimony because one of Saul's daughters will belong to David. So this is a good political move to unite the kingdom of Israel during the civil war. You could think of it like a political marriage also. So it says that, Abner delivers on the promise. He basically goes and takes her from the guy who he had been Saul had given this woman Michal to someone else. So Abner takes her from him to bring to David. And it says that he followed his wife all the way as far as he could before he was basically told, go home, dude, it's over. So, Paltiel, son of Laish, followed David's Michal all the way to the city of Bahurim. And so then Abner tells him, go home, go return. So anyway, Abner arrives, and he's been telling the elders of Israel, he's telling everybody, listen, the war is basically over. I am now going to seal the deal for David it's showtime. It's done with. I'm going to tell everybody that David is the guy and it's time for him to become king. End of story. So basically, Abner is on this really successful PR campaign of telling everybody to, hey, you know what? He's got my endorsement. That's the guy. So he does all this and does all this and does all this. And he then meets with David along with, he's got 20 men, so it's a group of 21. David hosts him with a great feast, and they have a good time. They forge their covenant, and sure enough, Abner promises him, like, with this covenant you're forging with me, I'll be your top guy, and I'll make sure that all that you want to rule over is yours. Guaranteed. And so it sounds like a phenomenal deal. And David sends him away in peace. He's got himself an awesome diplomat that represented everything that was stopping him from being the total king. He's now got what he needed. So he sends him off in peace. Now here's where the trouble happens. Joab is back. The man whose brother was killed at the pool in Gideon. So as Abner is leaving, the others in the town tell Joab, who's just returned from fighting in the wars, it says he was pursuing a troop. So he was basically in the field of battle. He comes back, and they're like, hey, did you hear? Abner was here. And he says, Abner, the guy who killed my brother? So what he does is, he tells them, call Abner back to town. Let's get him back over here. And they don't tell David about this. So they basically lure him in, and he doesn't even know what's going on. It says, Joab caused him to turn aside unwittingly into the midst of the gate to speak with him, and he struck him there under the fifth rib. And he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. So after this, David finds out what just happened, and the first thing he says is, it was not me. Me and my kingdom are innocent. We did not do this. We did not spill Abner's blood. And let the sin of this fall upon Joab and his father's house. Let it not be, let there not fail from the house of Joab one who has an issue, or one who is smitten with Tzara'at, or one who leans on the staff, falls, etc. So he basically, may there not fail from them. This is basically like a really big curse. He's saying, I curse their whole family, is what David's saying. It's at least how I understand it, because they just killed Abner. Now, beyond this being a guy he just made a covenant with, the guy he just killed was about to hand him the entire kingdom. Everything he didn't have yet, he was about to have. So this was huge. This is a huge diplomatic nightmare for David. He just lost a super important diplomat, super important ambassador, and frankly, the guy who was going to end the war tomorrow. All because these guys wanted revenge for their brother. So he gives them a command. It says that the reason that they did this was because they were Abishai and Joab. They were avenging their brother, which is the reason they did it. But all the same, it is done. So moving forward, he sees to it that everybody goes into a formal day of mourning, and David has Abner buried in Hebron, and he then gives a very large proclamation, should Abner die like a wicked man? Basically, he didn't get to die with honor in battle. Your hands were not bound, so you were not a prisoner, right? You died before me like a person who was wicked being killed in the street. It was not an honorable death. It was not what he deserved. And everybody was weeping over him. They had their garments ripped. It was a public mourning. And people try to bring David food. They try to serve him bread. But he says, God do so to me, and so continue, if before sunset I taste bread or anything. So he's basically saying, let God strike me down. Just like Abner was struck down, if I do something as disgraceful as eating bread on this day of tragedy and mourning. So they see that David is so serious about this that they're pleased. And it says that everything that he's doing, it's just really impressive to them. He has won over their hearts through his actions. And most importantly, they all understand that David was not behind this. And he concludes in this chapter saying, "Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? Today I am tender and just anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are harder than me. May the Lord requite the evildoer according to his evil." So, in essence, he's basically condemning them in a sense, because he is ultimately saying, may the Lord requite the evildoer according to his evil. So he's letting God also be the judge here. God will determine what his evil really is and let that be what judgments they receive. Now, there is, of course, the blood avenger, which is a concept in the Torah that is mentioned by name, which is why there are sanctuary cities inside of Israel. So, in the case of an accidental death, which seems to be the case regarding Asahel, mind you, it's said that Abner hit him with the back of the spear and killed him, which otherwise, wouldn't he have just struck him with a normal spear? No, it says he hit him with the back of the spear, so it was like an accident. Nevertheless, this is the result, and it has caused a big diplomatic issue for David, but he has navigated it successfully by indicating his innocence and also openly memorializing that great General Abner. It was not the best outcome, but it worked out for him all the same. And that's the end of this week's episode of the Weekly Parashahcast. Thank you for listening. It's very interesting to see the way the entire story of David changes. Now we're dealing with a man who's on the rise. Before he was on the run, and now he is on the rise and dealing with the various challenges that come with his newly anointed kingship, formerly over Judah, and now, what was to be his also from the rest of Israel. We'll see what happens now that his new diplomat and general has been lost. So until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2 saying thank you for listening. Hope you'll tune in next time, and as always, Baruch Hashem.